Welcome to my home kitchen. I'm so excited to have you here. In this chapter, I'm gonna show you everything there is to know to make dill pickle chips. I'll show you how to prep your cucumbers, how to set up your brine for the pickling process, and how to use the water bath canning method to pickle your chips. So let's get pickling. We are gonna be pickling with pickling cucumbers. Pickling cucumbers are a certain type of cucumber. These are not great if you just eat them off the vine. They have a really bitter flavor. If you're not able to find pickled cucumbers, you can easily do this with regular cucumbers that you buy at a grocery store, but pickling cucumbers keep that crunchiness a little bit more. So we are gonna get started by washing the cucumbers. So I know that cucumbers are all different sizes, but really you need about 1.5 pounds for 4 jars of cucumbers. We're gonna wanna cut these at 1/4 inch. When you're cutting these, you wanna make sure that you're cutting off both ends because they just don't keep as well. There's really not a rule about how thin you wanna cut your pickle chips, but I like them at this size because I can add them to a sandwich, I can add them to a burger, or I can just add them to a side. Okay, so now we have the 1.5 pounds of pickling cucumbers. We're gonna now add the salt. You wanna make sure that you're using a pickling salt or a kosher salt. You don't wanna use an iodine salt because that will cloud up the brine. You're gonna do 1 tablespoon of pickling salt. I'm gonna make sure that they are all over these cucumbers. The salt will pull out a little bit of the moisture and make sure that when we go to pickle these, that they'll stay nice and crunchy. I'm going to cover them up so they aren't disturbed. And now we're gonna go to the second step, which is making the brine that we're gonna soak them in. So we're gonna take a pot, we're gonna turn on the high heat. We're gonna pour 2 cups of vinegar, which I had already pre-measured. We're then gonna pour 2 cups of water. We're gonna add 1 tablespoon of pickling salt and 1 tablespoon of sugar. So we're gonna bring it up to a boil and make sure that all that salt and sugar dissolves. The next step is to prep our jars for canning. So for this recipe, I use the water bath canning method. If you want to hear more about water bath canning in more detail, check out that chapter. It says everything from beginning to end on how to do water bath canning. So to start the water bath canning process, you're going to want to make sure that you clean your jars really well. So I'm going to fill my canning pot with water, and I want to make sure that the water comes up just over the jars. So these are about covered with water, and now we're going to move the pot to the stove. Oh, here we go. You wanna make sure that you bring them to a boil. And so now we're gonna set up the pickling station. I'm gonna get out my tools as well as my spices to start the water bath canning method. I love the flavor of garlic in pickles, so I'm gonna have 2 cloves of garlic per jar. I'm gonna cut them up really nice and thin. I'm gonna put them to the side. I like setting up the station. It helps me stay organized, and also I just move so much faster, so it's nice to really line them up and have them all ready to go. I hear my jars coming to a boil, so I'm just gonna turn off the heat. So we have all the spices here. We have fresh dill. I love using fresh dill. If you don't have fresh dill, you can easily use dill seed. We have black peppercorns, whole cloves, mustard seed, and fresh garlic. This is also something really fun to do with kids and be able to have them pick and choose what they want in their pickles. Some people love using turmeric, some people love using allspice. I think it's a great way to learn about spices and kind of learn about the seeds and also the smells and the flavoring. So I really like doing with the kids because then they can kind of pick and choose, and now they really know the smell of cloves and they know the smell of mustard seeds, and so this can be really fun for the whole family. We've prepped our station, so now we're gonna wash off all that salt off of the pickles. So what the salt has done is pulled the moisture out of the cucumbers. We're going to wash off all of the salt, and then they're ready to can. Pour them into a colander. I'm just gonna wash them with some cold water, just to get off all that excess salt. And now we're ready to can with them. So here we go. These jars are ready. Take out our jar. And what we're gonna do is start with our spices. We're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of mustard seeds. We're gonna do 2 slivers of garlic. I'm gonna do 2 whole cloves. Cloves bring a whole bunch of flavor, so you don't wanna use too many cloves. And black peppercorns. I'm gonna use 1/4 teaspoon of black peppercorns. Then I'm gonna cut off about 4 to 5 pieces of fresh dill and just stuff that into the side. Now, I'm gonna add in the cucumbers. It doesn't really matter how you put them in. You just wanna make sure that you can fit in as many as you possibly can. So I'm gonna make sure that I leave about 1/4 inch headspace. So what I like to do is make sure that I'm moving quickly so that I'm keeping the jar warm, so when I pour in that brine, they're gonna be around the same temperature. Because if they're not at the same temperature, they could break when they're put back into the warm water. And now we're gonna pour in the brine. Okay. We're pouring that hot brine. Really don't need much for each jar because it's so packed in with cucumbers. Okay, so we poured in the brine. We wanna make sure that there are no air bubbles. So sometimes I just stick a skewer at the bottom just to make sure that we have no bubbles. I clean all of the rims to make sure that they're ready for sealing. All good? Okay, we're gonna take that magical wand and pull out a lid, pull out a band. Okay, so these are all on nice and tight. Okay, we're gonna put them all in the water bath canning pot. Look how beautiful they look, right? This is why I love making pickles, because I also think that they just look so beautiful. The colors are so pretty. All right, so now I'm gonna turn back up the heat. I'm gonna bring it to a boil. As soon as it starts boiling, I'm gonna set my timer for 10 minutes. I'm gonna boil for 10 minutes, and then we'll be able to take them out. Now that the water is boiling, I'm gonna set my timer for 10 minutes, and I'm gonna clean up. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes. We're gonna turn off the heat. Now we're gonna pull out those pickles. One thing that you wanna just make sure is that you're putting them on a cloth or surface that you can keep them for at least 24 hours. You need to wait for them to pop. They're either gonna pop in the next 15 minutes or in the next 24 hours. So after 24 hours, you wanna just go through and make sure that they have all popped. Oh, I just heard it. And you wanna just make sure that they have all popped. And when I say popped, I mean sealed. So you'll hear the pop, but really what's happening is that they're sealing. And so you can just very lightly put your hand over the top and it will feel a little more indented, which means that the jar has sealed properly. And it will have a shelf life from 6 months to a year. If you're using pickled cucumbers, you really wanna just wait a week so it really melds into that brine and is super tasty. One thing that I also love to do before I eat the pickles is throw them in my fridge so they're nice and cold and crisp before I eat them. So now these have been sitting for 24 hours. You can tell that they have all sealed because the mound is gone and they've all popped. These are gonna be good for 6 to 12 months. You wanna make sure that you put the date on top so you know when it's not gonna be good anymore. There you have it. I really hope that you've had fun in this chapter learning everything there is to know about making pickles. We've gone through the recipe, we've canned them with the water bath canning method. I hope that it really inspires you to can at home.